Welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm Kevin Riley, and this is another in a series of interesting people behind the lines in sports. Today I have a very special guest, all the way from Austin, Texas. His name is Johnny Quinn. You may not have heard of him, but let me give you a little brief background. Johnny Quinn was Hall of Famer at North Texas State University, where he was a wide receiver and set many records. From then, he also walked onto the track team and happened to be on the 4x100 relay that has the third fastest time in the college's history. From then, he went on to play with the Buffalo Bills as a free agent in 2007, and in 2008, he joined the Green Bay Packers. After the Green Bay Packers stint, he wanted to see what life was like in Canada, so he went up and he played for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And from there, his NFL and professional football career kind of deteriorated, went downhill after he had an ACL tear. But don't let that bother him. He has a lot of grit, and he decided that he would try out, and you got this, for the U.S. bobsled team, and he did that in 2010. He was on that team in 2014, and we're going to talk about that a little later. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Thrilled to be here.
Johnny, first of all, I got to ask you, how does a guy from Harrisburg get down to Texas? Tell me about that story.
Yeah. Family moved due to opportunity through work, so brought my family to Texas. I moved to Texas when I was 6 years old, so I'm a Texan now, and played Texas high school football, went all through those ranks, and so it was quite the journey.
Johnny, I've often wondered, I've seen, Friday Night Lights and all that kind of stuff. If you played down there in Texas, just give us a rough, little audible here on what it was like in Friday Night Lights that maybe you wouldn't see in the rest of the country.
Friday Night Lights, great book, great movie, great show that they've had out. And that's more on the outskirts of the city life, and it's phenomenal football. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and so I played, my Texas high school football was in the city. And it is still as competitive and dynamic as you see through Friday Night Lights. I mean, cities and towns do shut down halfway through Friday, so everybody can get to the stadium on a Friday night. I'll share a fun story for you. My high school, I went to McKinney High School, about 30 minutes north of Dallas. We were one of the first high schools to have an indoor facility to practice. And so when it rained or, it got super chilly outside, we had this beautiful indoor facility as a high schooler. Just incredible. The facilities and stadiums we have down here, they are remarkable.
Yeah, that's something. Jerry Sizemore, who I played with the Eagles, said that high school football in Texas, you are who you will always be in your small town when you played at 18 years old. That'll be as famous as you ever get in life. And that's because everybody comes out and knows who you are and watches those games. From there, you've had an opportunity out of high school to be contacted by a lot of universities and colleges wanting your football prowess, except for the fact that you only had one Division I kind of a scholarship. Now, there's a lot of guys who would shy away from that, saying, maybe I'll go someplace where I'm sure to start right away, and even if I get injured, I won't have a problem getting my job back. When you go to these big 1A programs like Alabama, Notre Dame, all those things are in the mix depending on what kind of luck you have injury-wise, how many All-Americans are playing in back of you when you do get injured. What made you so confident to make that step up to Division I?
And I'll be honest with you, I was a little frustrated on the scholarship opportunities that came in because here's what I was told, and this is a good life lesson. I was told if you produce, you get rewarded. And Kevin, my senior year, and think about this, I'm playing Texas high school football. At the time, 5A was the highest classification, and I led the entire state of Texas in receptions. I finished second in receiving touchdowns. And so here I am, the highest classification, Texas high school football. I'm first team All-State, and I have one Division I scholarship offer. So, to be honest with you, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was told if, you score all the touchdowns, you make all the plays, you've got colleges fighting for you. Kevin, I had one. And so what that did is it added fuel to the fire on, hey, I should have been recruited. I should have had multi-offers that, we had, cameras out and you have all the hats out and you select where you're going. I had one. And what I found looking back now, at the time I was frustrated. I was a little embarrassed because I had the numbers. But looking back now, sometimes all you need is one opportunity. And I was just so thankful that the University of North Texas came to the plate 2 days before signing day to offer a full scholarship. Because had they have not come through, although I had some D2 offers, I was going to walk on to Texas Tech. Wes Welker just graduated. I kind of fit the mold on what they look for in a receiver, and I was a little pissed off that they didn't offer. So I was going to Lubbock as a walk-on wide receiver. But when that full offer came, just financially and with my family, when we talked through it, we just couldn't turn down a full offer at the Division I level.
Johnny, it's funny you mentioned that because I have a friend that you and I have talked about him, Casey Keeler, the head coach of Sam Houston. And when he got the job, I went down, I was able to talk to the team 3 years ago, really enjoyed the visit and the talk with the kids. It was really interesting to me that he said, Kevin, one thing that I didn't anticipate when I got this job, and he said, and I thought I had all my bases covered, was the number of Division I athletes that would be available to me because these kids love Texas so much. They don't want to play out of state. They really want to come home and play in their hometown state. Did you find that to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about, the state of Texas, football, high school, collegiate, even, in the NFL, we've got the Cowboys and the Texans. I mean, this is a football state. And we've got, they're phenomenal football states. Florida's one, California, Pennsylvania, Ohio, right? I mean, there are some very talented football states. Texas, I mean, they are up there. It's a great atmosphere.
All right, I want to ask you about your NFL experience. I'll give you some background on mine. I get drafted in the 7th round by the Miami Dolphins, and 22 rookies go to camp, and there's going to be 3 openings. Within a week, we had about 10 guys quit that were rookies or free agents because they could do the math. I continued to hang in there, and when I get down to the last cut, there were 3 of us left. And on a Friday before the Sunday game, I was released due to the fact that they picked a guy up on waivers that they needed at another position. And I was devastated. Don Shula personally asked me to come to his office because all of the special teams notices were up and I was on all of them. It was one of these surprise things that happened to him. And I remember my chin hitting my chest. I'm getting cut. All this work I've put in 12 weeks in the heat of Miami and the humidity down there, and I'm not going to make this team. And I just thought maybe I had a chance to make it. They're coming off the best year of any NFL team, undefeated, the only team to do that, a Super Bowl. And I'm down on myself because I didn't make it. And Coach Shula walks out from behind the desk, lifts my chin up and says, "You just didn't get cut by the Pottstown Firebirds. You got cut by the world champions. You'll be picked up in a couple weeks." And that was enough for me to get another hop in my step. And in 3 weeks, I got picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, you were a free agent, and you didn't make the first club you were with. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, similar. I was so disappointed. I had that same feeling, right? When they call you in, you hear, and you got to bring your playbook. I mean, the disappointment, the overwhelming of, are you a failure, right? That flashes through your brain. You think about all the time and effort that you put in there. And, I'll be honest with you, Kevin, when I turned pro, the agent, we interviewed 8 agents. We picked the agent that was right for my family, and he calls me one night. He goes, "Johnny, I think you're going to get drafted." And I'm like, "Okay, agent, why?" He goes, "Johnny, we looked at the previous 9 NFL draft classes, and the last 9 years, they're drafting somewhere between 28 and 32 wide receivers." And Kevin, here's where we got excited, because my production of all the receivers coming out during my NFL draft class, I was in the top 10 in career receptions, career yards, career touchdowns. And so at that point, you didn't need to be a math whiz. I understood the math. Last 9 years, 28 to 32 get drafted. My production says I'm in the top 10. So, we're thinking, well, hurry up draft day. right? Who's going to give me a chance to go after my dream? And when the NFL draft came, 35 wide receivers were drafted, and I was not one of them. And so again, I had this track record of being confused because I produced, but then I didn't get rewarded. And so again, a great life lesson looking back now is that it put these chips on my shoulder, right? This grit, this determination to keep fighting for my dream. So when I got to Buffalo, and to get all my NFL gear as an undrafted free agent, right? Finally here, the dream started in McKinney, Texas. Day 3, I have a hamstring injury. And, you and I know what the NFL really stands for, not for long. And they had me on a flight back to Texas so quick. But, Kevin, to your point, that was the first time, seriously, that somebody sat me down, they looked me in the eye, and they said, Johnny, you're not good enough. We're not going to keep you around. We're not going to let you rehabilitate your hamstring. As a matter of fact, Johnny, today we are cutting you. And up to this point, Kevin, I didn't know how to handle that because I'd always been good at football. Led the entire state of Texas in receptions. I finished my college career as the school's all-time leading receiver, right? So I had this success after success after success. And then here I am, 22 years old, cut, sent home. It was devastating.
Well, and you had to pick it up from there. I know that probably put another chip on your shoulder, as I can imagine. And now you get an opportunity to go to Green Bay. You were looking for all those cold weather places after you got out of Texas, man. But you go to Green Bay and you get signed as a free agent. Now the story's a little different. What happened different up there?
Yeah. I knew the mistakes I made in Buffalo. Stay healthy, right? And things were going well.
Can't make the club in the tub.
Yeah. Can't make the club in the tub. That's right. Favre just retired. I think the first time, his little debacle. Aaron was taking over as the starter, and I'm getting great film. I get selected as off-season performer of the week. We get into the preseason. I have my first NFL reception on Monday Night Football. I'm playing all the special teams. You know the drill. You want to make the club, you got to play on the specials unless you're, a top rounder. And so, things are going well.
Well,
and then I get cut again.
You get cut again. We're going to come back after this because he does end up making it somewhere. Maybe not in this country, but he does make it somewhere. And the rest of the story gets really neat. This is Kevin Riley. We'll be back in a few minutes.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
we're back here. I'm Kevin Riley on Behind the Lines, and my guest today, Johnny Quinn out of Austin, Texas, professional football player. And we're going to get into his professional football playing days in Canada with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Johnny, tell me a little bit about playing professional football in Canada.
You know, when I got cut from the Packers, my agent's like, Johnny, I can't find a team in the NFL. I'm sending you north to the Canadian Football League. And so I got an opportunity with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And, you know, one of the jokes we talk about is, what does the CFL stands for? Well, it stands for come for less. And it was a lot less than my NFL deals, but I had a chance. And as a football player, that's what you want, an opportunity. And so I make the team in Saskatchewan, or the starting spot on the roster. I'm getting great film. You know, I score my first professional football touchdown. It's only a matter of time before my agent gets me back on track. And then, Kevin, I blow out my knee, torn ACL. And so at that point, I look like damaged goods on paper. They cut me and send me home.
Well, what did you learn from that experience? Because I can tell you, I learned a lot from mine.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've had 4 surgeries in my career. The knee was the worst. I want to do another blown out knee. You know, it was interesting. I remember sitting down with the general manager right when I got injured, and he goes, Johnny, why don't you go back to Texas, rehabilitate your knee, come back up here next year, re-earn a spot on the roster. And Kevin, he goes, I believe in you. And so he kind of like, you know, shocked me a little bit, because I haven't heard those words at the professional football level yet. So it gave me the confidence to keep fighting after this dream. And if you've done a knee before, or any of our listeners, if you know somebody who's blown out a knee, I mean, it takes 6 months, 9 months, some cases a year recovery. Kevin, I got medically cleared in 5.5 months from an ACL, full ACL repair, 2 weeks before training camp, right? 2 weeks before I get to continue to go after this dream. And then I got a phone call from the general manager. Here's what he says. He goes, Johnny, we are worried about your knee. Today we are cutting you. And so, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm grabbing all my medical documents showing that, hey, I'm clear, I'm healthy. You know, 6 months ago I sat in your office, right? Remember when you said you believed in me? Johnny, today we are cutting you. And it's a reminder that, and I'm sure our listeners have experienced this before, is that when your words and your actions, when those don't line up, right, when they're different, there's confusion. Trust is broken, right? Things fall apart. And that was brutal for me, right? That was devastating, because at that point, I'm 3 cuts in. I've got a blown out knee. My football career, Kevin, is over. Over.
Well, you know, you bring up something that the NFL is known for too, and that is treating people as if they're property, trading them. And back in the day, and I played in 73 through 76, we didn't have free agency. So you were only as good as the money they wanted to give you for your contract, or they told you to go home and sit around and think about it. And those true stories happen, not to the real elite players, but to those players that were on the bubble. Anyway, all of that being said, here we are in today's athletic environment, and you said the key word, trust. Trust is so important in every aspect of life. Coach Dick Vermeil has a saying that I love. People don't care about how much you know until people know about how much you care. And there was a guy that got the most out of people because his players trusted him. He's the only guy I know that took teams who were at the bottom of the division, and in 3 years build them up to there in a Super Bowl. And why was he able to do that? He was trusted. They trusted him. They knew that he was a human being at heart, and that's how he treated them. And because of that, he got a lot more mileage out of all of them. He really made people work hard in training camp, sometimes too hard. But then you look at the statistics, and the year that the Eagles went to the Super Bowl under him, they outscored their opponents 144 to like 35 in the fourth quarter from being in better shape and wanting it more. So there's something to be said about that. So with all of this hard work that you did, and I know how incredible you must have worked to get back from a torn ACL in 5.5 months. Some guys aren't back in a year. So you do all this hard work and you're disappointed once again. So easy for you to pack your bag and say, oh, well, it was a nice career while it lasted. What spurred you on to the next piece?
Yeah, I was so devastated because this was not like this was completely opposite on how I thought my professional football career was going to go. I mean, Kevin, the exact opposite. And so when I got healthy and they cut me again and I'm medically cleared, here's what I realized. I realized that I still had something left in the tank. Now, there was no more opportunity on the football front, right? Again, 3 cuts, a blown out knee. I mean, you're done. But I had something left in the tank athletically. So some things started to line up. My mom, one of her co-workers was a bobsledder from the 2010 Winter Olympics. My agent at the time, he represented a bobsledder in the 2002 Winter Olympics. And because there's no NCAA level bobsledding, they recruit from sports like football and track and field. Well, my scholarship was in football, and I walked onto the track and field team. I had the speed and power that they looked for. And I remember my agent called one night. He goes, Johnny, there's been 2 people ever to play in the NFL and compete in the Winter Olympics. There's been about 30 on the Summer Olympic side, but only 2 ever on the winter. The first guy to do it was a guy by the name of Herschel Walker. I said, oh, if Herschel did it, yeah, sign me up. How do you do this thing? And so I'm having this conversation with this driver at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, New York. He goes, Johnny, why don't you come out here in a couple months, push a bobsled around, see if you like it. I said, look, man, I'll come out, but if my agent finds a football team, I'm out of here. True story. 1 month before I'm supposed to go get my cool runnings on, I get a phone call from this driver. He goes, Johnny, one of my guys has showed up overweight. Do you want to come up now and compete in the U.S. 4-man team trials? And Kevin, I'm like, well, when is the race? He goes, it's in 2 days. I said, 2 days? Man, I've never pushed a bobsled in my life. I live in Texas. We don't get any snow. I play football. He goes, Johnny. All you have to do is get inside the sled. And so, Kevin, true story, I flew up to the Olympic Training Center the night before team trials. My first time ever on ice was at the U.S. 4-man team trials, and we took 3rd place. It was unbelievable, unexpected. And it set in motion. Here's the funny thing, Kevin. It set in motion this new dream. Right, this new opportunity to pursue. And then 4 years later, to become a United States Olympian, to wear the red, white, and blue and represent our country on the world's greatest stage athletically. I mean, it was remarkable. And here's what it did, Kevin. As I looked back on my football career, my pro football career, and how devastating all those cuts were, you know what happened? It made it worth it, because I got mentally tougher after every cut. And when I heard my name, they said Johnny Quinn, the United States. I mean, it put all the pieces together for me.
So, Johnny, here you are. You're out there. Give us an idea. You're standing up there getting ready to go down with the sled in the 2014 Olympics. It's the real deal now. This isn't the trials. You hear the national anthem go off at some point during the day. To just give us an idea of what that feels like now. You put all of your problems behind you, and you're not going to let anything in your head to rent space that's negative. And you got this great opportunity. It's snowing. Tell us what happens.
To see all the country's flags fly, to see just all the different cultures come together for a sporting event, I mean, it is a feeling like no other. And you're right, of all the flags, to see the American flag fly, and you're competing with guys that you've created a remarkable bond with. I mean, you are dialed in, right? The noise is insane, but you've blurred it out, right? You can't think or hear of anything except your responsibility and what you're trying to do. And so in bobsled, we push for 5 seconds, and then we get in. And so the violence at the start block of 4 guys hitting the push bar together this sled just just slingshots out, and then you got to apply the pressure and make sure that you're carrying speed as the hill starts to go down, and then you get in and you hang on, and it's to go 80 miles an hour down an icy mountain with no seat belts. I mean, it is a crazy ride. You're pulling 4 to 5 G's. I mean, when you get out, the adrenaline, Kevin, is out of the roof. I mean, it's insane. And at the Olympic Games, they happen every 4 years. I had 9 family members there. My fiance, now my wife, she was there. To have 9 flights booked to Russia, and to have them there for that, and to cross the finish line in the Olympic Games, special. A moment I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Johnny, tell us what you're doing now. You've taken all of these, barriers that have faced you in the past, and you've basically built upon them to make it to this Olympic dream. It's really funny how we start out in life and how we have certain goals and they get changed, but they wouldn't have manifested if you hadn't been pushing, if you hadn't had grit, if you hadn't been taking on, some incredible circumstances. Tell us, what you're doing now as a result of all of this stuff happening to you, good and bad.
Yeah. One of the things I realized is a lot of the lessons and techniques and tools that I used or we used in the NFL and the Olympics, they transition over flawlessly into the marketplace. And so I'm a full-time keynote speaker, live or virtual events. I typically stay in the lane of performance and productivity. And, at the time of our taping, Kevin, as we navigate through COVID and beyond with worry, stress, anxiety at an all-time high, who better than to come in and bring a powerful, positive, hopeful message than a United States Olympian. So I'm doing a lot of keynotes, breakouts, workshop sessions. And then the entrepreneurial bug of me, my wife and I, we own a property and casualty business in the state of Texas. So I'm a full-time keynote speaker, and we own a auto home life insurance company in Texas.
That's fantastic stuff. And one other thing I haven't mentioned to this point, but you're now an author.
That's right. I got it right here. I wrote a book called Push, with a lot of the wisdom that I learned in the NFL, in the Olympics, the coaches I've been around, the Olympic medalists. And here's the cool thing about this book, how we have it laid out with the publisher, Kevin, is that you can read this book like a traditional book, page 1 all the way to the end. Or if you're not a big reader, the way the book is set up is you can go to each individual chapter. Each chapter stands alone. And so you can go, well, what did Johnny learn during his time with the Green Bay Packers? And just read that chapter. Or what did Johnny learn during Olympic trials? And just read that chapter. They stand alone. A lot of people don't know this, Kevin, but I was benched week 3 of the Olympic year. Now, there's only 8 weeks in the Olympic year, and your name better be on the roster week 8. Sure, it worked out, right? I'm wearing the logo here. You can see it. But how do you handle that? Getting benched 5 weeks before the Olympics. Again, when I had 9 flights booked to Russia. And I'd say that to our listeners. How do you handle that when you get benched in life? And so I wrote about that and put a lot of the tools and techniques that I learned that you can use today.
Johnny, I want to thank you for having you on the program. You've been tremendous, and we wish you all the luck. If I get down to Austin, I'm looking you up, and that goes for you. If I find out you were in Philly and you didn't call me, you're going to have a one-armed guy looking for you, all right? John, good luck to you, and good luck with the book and the rest of your life.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
This is Kevin Riley. Before I leave, I also have a book called Tackling Life. A lot of the same stories that Johnny's gone through. Johnny's a motivational speaker, and so am I. If you're looking for one of the two of us to go out there and do a job for your company or your organization, we'd be glad to talk to you. So until next time, this is Kevin Riley from Behind the Lines.